It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview a sports podcast called She Got Balls. Gracie, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start a sports podcast?
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in sports and just watching them. And I was also a college athlete. I played lacrosse and still love to play lacrosse. And I've always wanted to be working in the sports industry. But right now, because of the crazy times in sports, I can't really find my way back into the sports industry as I would like. And so, in order just to keep myself up to date and everyone else, that's really how this came about.
Can you talk about your playing career playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so I born and raised in Buffalo, New York, and there's a strong little sports community there within lacrosse. And I've always loved the sport, loved playing it growing up, continued in high school to take it more seriously, and then ended up playing lacrosse at John Carroll University. It's a Division III program, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But I'm so glad I didn't. And now I'm just continuing to stay active in the community through coaching and also just playing in an adult league.
Can you talk about how you came up with your sports podcast, She Got Balls?
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun, punny name. She's got balls. Sometimes when I'm with my family or my friends, you hear that kind of being thrown around like, oh, he's got like such big balls. Like, I can't believe he did that, or kind of something like that. And so I decided I've always had the name in the back of my head, like, oh, she's got balls. Like, she's pretty ballsy to do this. And it also is a play on words because of sports and all the different sports balls. So kind of just wanted something fun.
What do you cover in your sports talk podcast?
So the main chunk of it typically is an interview with an athlete. However, I wanted to make it a weekly sports podcast to focus on all of the games that happened the week before and then the week moving forward so people just know what to be on the lookout for the big games.
Who are some of the people that you have interviewed?
So far, I have gotten two Green Bay Packers NFL players, which is pretty fun. I've had on Tim Boyle and Jay Sternberger, and then from the NWSL women's soccer, I had on Emily Boyd, who's a goalie, and then most recently, I've had the privilege to interview and also many others WNBA players like Morgan Tuck, Alicia Gray.
How do you go about getting some of the people that you've interviewed?
So it's really just catching or throwing a really wide and big net and just seeing wherever it can stick. Sometimes it might just be on Instagram and messaging a bunch of people, or also just finding weird connections through different people.
Can you talk about some of the segments that you have on your podcast?
Yeah, so far right now, that's kind of been a little too structured actually. I've been starting off with some post game post game highlights and recaps of the games that happened last week, and then when I talk about the games coming up, I like to call those the pre-game details, and then the two biggest ones I've always really stayed focused with is called Hoot and a Holler and sports content feature of the week. So every week I try to give it basically the Hoot and Holler is like a shout out. I try to give someone a shout out within the sports industry, an athlete, team, organization that's given back to the community. I think that's a really important thing to mention and highlight because not many people do. And then a sports content feature of the week is usually just some movie or TV show or documentary if someone wants to learn more about sports, and this is a fun way to watch it.
That's a wonderful idea how you have this segment Hoot and Holler.
Thank you.
What are some of your future plans for She Got Balls?
So for right now, I think I'm just trying to focus on growing the audience and just growing the podcast in order to get more interviews and also just make it a little bit more comedic and fun. But at the same time, I would love to down the road make it more of a community of sports fans that, you don't need the analytics or the stats, just the basic sports fan out there that wants the bar talk of what's going on in the industry.
Can you talk about some stuff that you've learned over the years since you've started?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think the biggest thing is just practice speaking skills and also preparation. I've learned, if you want to look good and, you know, have the interviewee notice you, is you just have to be prepared and have questions ready, their information, and really know who they are. So when they do get on the screen, you're very familiar with them and you can create talking points easily without trying to pull random little things.
What are some of your future plans for She Got Balls?
So, like I kind of mentioned, I really just want to continue to grow it with having different people come on for interviews and also create a community is very important for me.
What advice would you give upcoming and future sports talk podcasts that are looking to get started into the same industry?
I would say just start. I think for me and a lot of people, you want to have all these ideas come together and you want everything to be perfect right from the beginning. But the biggest advice I can give is just get the ball rolling and just keep it moving. And also, it's not going to be perfect in the beginning, so don't try.
Where can my listeners find your podcast at on social media along with podcast platforms?
Yeah, so you can find She's Got Balls podcast on all the podcast platforms, specifically Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, and also Amazon. And then you can also follow us on Instagram at She's Got Balls podcast. And then my personal Instagram and TikTok page, where I do post some information and just fun videos regarding the podcast, is my full name, Grace Curatolo.
Are you also on YouTube?
No, not yet. I'm still, I could have, I guess, maybe from the beginning, but hopefully down the line, I'll get there.
Thank you again, Gracie, for your interview, and best of luck with your podcast. She Got Balls.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Gracie, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.